This episode of the podcast is presented by Enhanced. Enhanced Hemp Apparel has finally launched in Australia with its own hemp muscle and training tee, which are both now available online. I'll have you know hemp fiber is 4 times stronger than cotton. It's super comfy to wear. It's UV resistant. It's good for snags because it's also odor resistant, so you can train hard, get sweaty and not smell. It's got a unique breathable fiber which has the ability to cool and insulate at the same time, so it's good depending what you need. Enhanced is also soon launching its own range of hemp sport oils to aid with your training and recovery needs. So for more information, head over to enhanced.com, which is spelled ENHANCD.com, and use that discount code RUNITBACK at checkout for 20% off your order. Now, to the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Run It Back podcast, episode number 23, coming in hot this weekend, boys. I'm excited. We've got the boys back in town. We've got the 4 boys back on the potty. First time in a long time. I've got some fights to talk about as well, boys. So before I get too into it, as I usually do, introduce my co-host, DL. How are we? Sorry, young DL. How are we?
Oh, thanks, Snags. Snags, I'm good. Been a couple of crazy months for the potty, eh?
It's been weird.
Last week we had UFC fighter Nadia Kassem on. People seem to really dig her story, especially her no holding back vibe. We had to put an explicit tag on the potty for the first time as well, which was a first for us. But yeah, I think that's what we loved about Nadia, and the audience really responded well to that, so that was really cool. We're not limited just to fighters. We're actually going to explore outside of that as well. And we've got a couple of really good interviews dropping in May. So we won't really reveal too much about those ones yet. They're coming hot in May. So that should be good months for us. But, you know, today's podcast, absolutely stacked. Probably more stacked than UFC 249 2.0. So I'm excited about this. We're going to check in with the boys. Snag's pretty concerned to see how the boys are doing in ISO. So we're going to do a bit of a, as I'm calling it, ISO chats with Snags. So that should be cool.
I like that. I need some lounge music for that. I feel like there's some
we do.
We
might, yeah, mate. I can organise that in post for you. No worries.
Thank you.
Hot Take is back as always. Probably one of the most popular segments on the Run It Back podcast. We've gone with 5 topics on it this week, so that's pretty crazy. We're talking about 6 fights. Because there were so many good fights in that card, we've wrapped a few in the prelim, so Statman will talk about that when it gets to that. We better introduce the boys. On the potty as well, still in ISO as we all are. Stoney, how are you, man?
Good, DL. It's good to be back. Had a nice little warm-up with the live Q&A with the Statman. It was good to talk a bit of MMA and just get back involved. So, no, looking forward to it. As you said, it has been a while, and it's good to have the full crew back.
Absolutely. Snags, who else we got?
Look, the man himself, the man of the hour, the man that carries us through the stats and all the MMA talk, as well as the gulag. Statman, how are we?
I'm doing well, and I think Stoney just hit the nail on the head. It's been ages since we've sat down, even like outside the podcast, had some fights to talk about, had some MMA to talk about. So genuinely super excited to be back and recording this and talking about some sick fights.
Well, boys, before we get into some sick fights, I thought we'd get into some sick chats. Not penning the pun, but what I've got for you boys is just a bit of ISO chat with Snags. So I just want to see what's going on. We haven't been together for a while, even if it is via Zoom. But boys, what's been going on? DL, what's new in the world of producer young DL?
Mate, well, the podcast has kept me pretty busy. ISO Life's actually probably helped me with the podcast, which has been cool. We've been managed to put a heap of new things into play. As you can see, my room behind me is different to the last time you boys probably would have seen it. We've got some lights going on now and some shelves, so bit of DIY at home. Outside of that, mate, I'm deep into Ozarks on Netflix at the moment.
Ozarks.
Yeah, I'm a bit late on the scene with Ozarks, I feel, but I smashed through. There's 3 seasons, and I smashed through 2 in a couple of days with the wife. Really intense, and like everyone else, whoa, Snags has just upped his background, which is exciting.
I've been doing a fair bit of handyman work myself. As your boys can probably see.
That's a visual joke. Sorry for the people listening on the podcast. And like everyone else, I'm watching The Last Dance. So the first 2 episodes were on last week. So there's 2 that dropped this week that I've penciled in for a day off that I've got this week. So I'll park myself on the couch and watch that. just started reading a book again, 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. So,
Good book.
yeah, good book.
You're a busy
Good book.
man.
So far, I'm only one rule in, so it's fine.
Mate, you know me.
But,
I only need one rule, the rest out the window.
That's true. That's why I'm reading this book, so I can stay out of trouble when I'm with
How
you.
funny. Anyway, next up, I guess, Stoney, what's been going on in Mate, you've been in ISO longer than
Yeah.
all the boys.
He went early.
And there has been some conspiracy theories coming out of there.
I think I started ISO shortly before coronavirus was even announced, if I recall correctly. I have to admit, it's actually agreeing pretty well with me. I'm getting stuff done in the backyard. I'm certainly up to speed with Netflix. My Madden career's never looked more promising.
What difficulty are you playing on?
I'm only on Pro, so I only got it 3 days ago, but it's going good.
Look at the shady look from DL because he's playing rookie and getting burnt.
I'm
every
playing
week.
hard.
Are ya?
I got beaten by the Bengals yesterday, which is like I nearly threw it out the window. So
I'm 4-0, all pro. Anyway, proceed.
Yeah, very similar to DL. A bit of Netflix happening. The Last Dance obviously is a big hit. Everyone's tuning into that. So I watched the latest 2 episodes just before the podcast. So DL, you're in for a treat when you get to that. What else? A bit of Tiger King. I think the world got a bit swept up with Joe Exotic. You haven't got. Yeah, I think you and Joe get on quite well. So
I'm thinking about changing my name to Snags Exotic Snags.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Oh, and on the work front, contrary to everything that's going on, I actually got a mini promotion 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations!
So, yeah, everything's coming up Millhouse. I'm just enjoying ISO life as it stands currently.
Oh, well, congratulations, Mr. Stone. That's nice to hear. Statman, what's been going on in the world of the stats other than just breaking down the numbers 24/7?
It does take off like 20 hours of my day, I'd say, most of it. The rest of it is spent honing my skills in Call of Duty mostly.
And how are those skills going?
Terrible, awful, genuinely dreadful. I had a fairly chunky session today, and took me several lives before I even got a chance to get out of the gulag. So it was
Team Gulag, baby.
Mate, Team Gulag. I've been dicking around with Streamlabs OBS, getting things looking pretty in case we decide we want to do some more streaming stuff in future. And I've read, probably for the 100th time, it doesn't sound like it's a self-help book, but I've been reading World War Z by Max Brooks, Zombie Apocalypse, kind of like a diary almost about the world's descent in a zombie apocalypse. And it does match up quite nicely with how the world kind of went to shit for a bit there with coronavirus. So that was a bit fun.
We all know you want to drop it. What's the Statman's Twitch? Just individual Twitch, not to run it back.
The Statman MMA.
Get on, follow that, please, guys. Get him up to those 50 followers. Get him affiliated pretty quickly. See him in the gulag. If he plays with the boys, he's got to save us 24/7. So, boys, well, welcome back from ISO. First time we've had the 4 of us on podcast in a long time. So,
Snags, we can't let you go without.
You know me,
dropping
boys.
A little bit of ISO.
Look, you know me, boys.
A little bit of
busy.
ISO on us.
Been busy doing some handiwork around the house. You know, I'm pretty blue collar with the old tools. So, actually, no, I'm not at all. But boys,
you got 3 kids, you'd be pretty busy.
Yeah, been busy with the kids. Prepping for homeschool to start again on Wednesday because kids aren't back at school. Work, obviously, and then just been thrown down in the garage gym. Done a couple of crazy workouts, which you boys would have saw. My worst one, which I've still got PTSD from, 100 rounds for time, 100-meter run, 10 burpees every round. So it's 10 Ks and 1,000 burpees. I did it in 2 hours, 47 minutes, which is probably slow compared to some professionals, but the body was sore after that. I'm still recovering, and if someone says burpee to me again, even if it's after a couple of bourbons, shan't be having it.
Stoney gave you a bit of a shout out to your CrossFit love
I saw that.
on the Q&A the other day.
Actually, hit a couple of goals on the old ISO life in the gym. So it's been interesting training at home. That's probably about it for Snags.
Excellent. Boys, I think that takes us into Hot Take. Twitter beef. Who gives Izzy more trouble? Jones, Till, or Woodley?
I would say Jones used to until he got his phone confiscated.
Look, I think we've already seen how the Till and Woodley fights take place. I think Whittaker and Till are very similar, and I think Yoel and Woodley very similar. So I'm really keen to see that reach. The Statman talked about how John Jones doesn't deal well with the reach. I'm keen to see how Izzy Adesanya deals with John Jones's 84 reach.
If
I
we're
think that's on
talking,
Twitter. I don't think that's on Twitter at all. His reaches are not. Oh, he's got pretty good reach on Twitter. He's got a lot of followers.
if we're talking in a Twitter fight specifically, the Till and Izzy combatants, it's almost like they're best mates, but then they hate each other. It's fun to watch. So I reckon Till gets under Izzy's skin, but they play it off as if they're best mates.
Luke Rockhold says he's getting an itch to fight again.
Look, I saw a funny meme the other day that said Luke Rockhold is keen, but his chin isn't, which I thought was pretty funny. But mate, he's a good fighter if you come back and have a couple of fights. I wouldn't say no to it.
Yeah, look, I think what it means is the modelling career wasn't as lucrative as what Luke probably first thought. And to be honest, Luke probably should have dated Chrissy Blair when he had the chance.
Dana had the chat with Chuck Liddell. Joe had the chat with Brendan Schaub. I would like to sit down with Luke Rockhold, have the chat with him and say, please don't. Just please don't.
That's gold. Even though April 19th, which was the original 249, was cancelled, Tony Ferguson still decided to make weight.
One word: savage.
Boss move.
We've got to consider his background. Ferguson, two-time All-American, one-time NCAA national champ. In a college wrestling season, that goes on for 4 months. They make weight once a week for 16 weeks. So in my eyes, Tony making weight a fortnight ago is simply vintage Tony, just showing the world that he's ready to throw down.
Am I the only one that has a massive problem with someone cutting weight during a pandemic for no reason? Cuts weight in a pandemic, drops 20 pounds, and then he has to back it up 2 weeks later against Justin Gaethje. Weight cuts do affect your chin. What are we going to see?
Firmly disagree. I think he's probably one of the many people dropping weight during the pandemic, Craig.
Probably true.
GSP on the Errol Hawani show said, I never enjoyed 1 second in the octagon.
Look, I probably wouldn't enjoy getting punched in the face either, so I would probably say touche, my friend.
Absolutely. We hear this from many, many fighters, and I think it must be a fairly common viewpoint in the locker room.
GSP's been pretty open about his anxiety before fights and everything like that, so this doesn't surprise me, but I would like to sit him down with the first round of GSP Koscheck 2 and just show him GSP jabbing the shit out of Koscheck's face and get him to tell me with a lie detector on that he did not enjoy that. I reckon he enjoyed that very much.
If you created a fake Twitter account that Dana White replied to, what would you want your story to be?
Snags gets promoted to blue belt by BJ Penn.
Not so much a story, but I'd ask him a question. I'd say, hey, Dana, if you come third in a jiu-jitsu tournament with only 3 competitors, do you really deserve to be on the podium? And he'd write back and say, get off the podium, Sugar Sean, you fraud.
Brilliant.
What?
I don't think Snags
Sean
heard
listened.
that.
He got burnt.
I was like
And he
blocking
wasn't
you
even
out,
listening.
mate, that's for sure. Important email from Dana White over here. BJ Penn asking me when he can promote me.
Brilliant. Mine would be, just to see the particular shade of red that Dana turns, it would be Tito Ortiz challenge Dana White to an IQ contest.
Thank you, boys. Boys, it is fight time. We had a quick fire prelim multi to kick us off.
Yeah.
What are the 3 fights we're talking
As
about?
DL said, obviously this card is stacked beyond belief, so it felt not correct to ignore these fights. So the game is, you've got to pick a winner in each of these 3 fights, and you only get a point for these guys here if you get all 3 correct. So the fights are Alexia Oleinik versus Fabrizio Werdum, Carla Esparza versus Michelle Waterson, and Uriah Hall versus Jacare Souza. I'll start off with Sean.
Look, my 3 for this, I'm going to go Hall, Waterson, and I can never say his last name, Craig. Help me out here.
Alexia Oleinik.
Yep, because I'm going for the Ezekiel, baby. You know it.
Oh.
When I saw him come up, I was so excited. It wasn't even funny. And that's my 3.
Deal.
I'm going to go Verdum, Waterson, and Hall. The thing that really excited me about my multi is Waterson and Hall are both underdogs. So on the old sports bet, $6.01, not even boosted. So I'll boost that and get a little bit more. Actually putting that bet on for real. So Waterson, Hall, and Verdum for me.
Stoney?
Yeah, very similar to DL. Very surprised that Watterson is an underdog versus Carla Esparza. If she can hang in there for 5 with Carolina and take the decision, if she can hang in there for 5 with Joanna and take that to the scorecards, I think she can do very well against Carla. So I'm going Watterson, Badoom, and Jacare.
I've gone Alexia Linick, Carla Esparza, and Jacare Souza. So pretty much the exact opposite of DL there as well, which is a first. So I think that there would be. Oh, have we covered bases? I don't think it's possible for all of us to have picked all possible combinations, but there's a chance there that none of us will get that point there. Should be fun. Shall we go into the featured prelim, boys?
We should.
Perfect. So the featured prelim on UFC 249, Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis tried out for the Ultimate Fighter US versus UK, the season coached by Dan Henderson and Michael Bisping. Despite being 6-0 with 5 finishes, he wasn't even selected for the elimination fights to get into the house. Obviously, he was only 21 or 22 at the time. They thought that he might need a little bit more seasoning, and I'm almost grateful that they did, because he then went on to the WEC, got his Showtime kick in, and moved his way into the UFC, one of the hottest prospects to enter the UFC for quite some time. This fight's interesting. Donald Cerrone's backing up pretty quickly. I am going to take Anthony Pettis. I think Anthony Pettis loves a good body kick. Donald Cerrone hates a good body kick, and I think he should take it home. Anthony Pettis should take it home. Body kick, then a head kick.
Yeah, look, Anthony Pettis, I cannot pick this dude's fights. Every time I put money on him, he comes up with a loss or he gets injured in the second round. Every time I bet against him, like the Wonderboy fight, like he pulls a crazy upset. 4 losses in his past 6 doesn't fill me with confidence. I think Cerrone is the better all-round fighter, but he's certainly not as durable as he used to be. So I'm going to side with you on this one. I'm going to go with Anthony Pettis.
I spent the time trying to work out who had more to lose. I think Statman's talked about this before on the podcast. Batty was worried about Pettis. I've come to that same conclusion. I think if Cerrone loses this fight, I think even if Cerrone lost the next 2 fights, he's going to be fine. But for Pettis, looks a lot different. Like, yes, he's headlining a prelim, which is fantastic, but you're going to slowly start sliding down that order. And you don't want to finish your career as an early prelim fight when you've got as amount of Ks as you do as Pettis. So I feel like Pettis has got more on the line. A good handful of his last fights. Like, he's looked great. He's just made some mistakes the decision's gone the wrong way. So saying that, I'm going to take Pettis.
Sure.
Yeah. It was like I was making my mind up during what I was saying. So
saying that, Snags is going to take Cowboy Cerrone.
Checks his notes.
Do you know the funniest thing? First time in podcast history, Snags has come with notes, and I've just gone off my notes from the first one because I'd put down Pettis as my tip, and I've just changed it on the spot. I don't know why I even bothered with these notes. I'm going to go Cowboy. Even though his last fight was obviously against Connor, it was real short. I think his experience here might get us across the line, and then he'll do Pettis in. So Cowboy for me.
Perfect. First fight on the main card, heavyweight contest, Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. Greg Hardy is known for being a NFL starter. Obviously, fighting in the UFC for several fights now as well. He also had quite a successful college career in basketball and track, and earned a varsity letter in 3 separate sports. He was a sprinter and a shot putter as well, and then started on the basketball team several times as well. So obviously, I forget who it is. A fighter has said that when you come into a game with the experience in another sport, it makes it easier to adapt because you know the talent and you know the work that needs to go into being very, very good at a sport. So Greg Hardy's obviously put the same effort that took him to being an NFL starter into his UFC career, already on fighting his headline cards with Alexander Volkov, and he's here up against Yorgan De Castro as well. Going into the fight, we watched Yorgan De Castro against Justin Tuffer in Melbourne the first night that we all hung out. Outside of that, I do think Greg Hardy hits like a truck, and I don't think we saw enough of Yorgan De Castro to kind of get a fix on his full talent set. Unless something incredibly bizarre happens in this fight, Greg Hardy should take it out. In saying that, it is a Greg Hardy fight, so it very well likely could have some bizarre knee to the head of a downed opponent, inhaler gate, weird, bizarre ending to it. But I'm sticking that Greg Hardy will take this one by knockout.
Statman with that negativity again.
Yeah. Speaking of negativity, look, I don't particularly like either of these dudes, so I'm hoping this is a really quick fight. I'm picking Hardy and hopefully for a round 1 KO so we can slip on to the next one.
Yeah, not a great deal of interest from me either on this one. I'm really unsure of what the plan is for Hardy in the UFC. They keep pushing him into this main card status, and he's pretty active too, which is crazy. So, and like Statman said, he's an athlete, he's come from the NFL, he can adapt quickly to it. So obviously they're trying to find something special out of him. And I think I've tipped him every time on the podcast as well. So it's going to be no different. I'm going to run it back again. Hardy for me.
Oh, sneaky little plug there to the podcast.
Yeah, always.
I'm going to go with DL boys. I'm going to pick Hardy as well. Even with the decorated past events, as Statman would say, I think he'll get the win across line. His athleticism is off the charts, and I can see why they're pushing him. So Hardy for me.
Next fight, Jeremy Stevens versus Calvin Kattar. I just wanted to touch on Jeremy Stevens' strength of schedule. Obviously, he's probably, unfortunately, most well known as who the fuck is that guy from Conor McGregor. But he has consistently fought top-tier opponents throughout his UFC run. He's fought 2 title challenges and 6 different UFC champions. And he managed to get wins over 2 of them, Rafael dos Anjos and Renan Barão. So the dude has fought the cream of the crop in the lightweight and the featherweight division. In saying that, I do think that he's probably reached the tip of his game at this point. He's getting a little older. He's getting a little slower. His fights with Yair Rodriguez, or his rematch fight with Yair Rodriguez, he looked a little stiff to my eyes. I think Calvin Kattar takes this one out.
Yeah, look, I'm predicting an upset here. Kattar has obviously got a far better record, 20-4. I think Stevens is more like 28-17, so he's getting a lot of L's in the book. But as you said, Statman, he's been fighting killers for years, and you look at the names he's lost to, there's really no shame in that record, even though he hasn't won since Feb 2018, and obviously we're looking at quite a while since he's been in the win column. I still think he gets this done. Kattar's had 6 fights in the UFC. He's 4-2. This is a big test for him. I'm predicting a bit of an upset with Jeremy Stevens to take this one.
I'm taking Kattar. If you look back at the fight with Zabit, I've said this on the podcast many a times, I'm really high on Zabit. I think he's a future champion in the UFC. He took Zabit all the way. That was a really, really good fight from Kattar. So, and Jeremy Stevens, like we've said, he's no slouch. So it should be an absolute war, but I think Kattar should get this one done.
Look out. Boys, I've gone the fierce underdog, Jeremy Stevens. I think I saw him on Sportsbet paying about $3.30. Sugar value. That's what I thought to myself.
Sugar value.
Sugar value. It's a new thing I'm bringing into the potty, boys.
Is now trending.
Trademark that,
yeah.
boy.
Hashtag sugar value. That's what I want everyone to put on their bets.
It's great. I love it.
You send in your bets and you put on an underdog, hashtag sugar value, and tag me in it, pretty please. But I'm going Stevens for Snags.
Matching bets.
Oh, boys, yeah. Throw around a bit of cash in my time. You know, mate. Sure. No, I'm not matching bets.
Hashtag sugar value.
Hashtag sugar value for Stevens.
So heading into the heavyweight contest, Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho brings with him an impressive kickboxing resume, putting together a 76-9 record with a ridiculous 64 knockouts. So if you have your calculator ready, that is a 75% KO rate in kickboxing and is only overshadowed by his 90% KO rate in MMA. Heading into this fight, this was probably the fight outside of the original UFC 249 card that I was actually desperate to see and was very, very upset that it got called off. Mostly because I just love watching Francis Ngannou walk to the cage and know that someone is about to be torn to pieces. No surprise I'm taking Francis Ngannou for here. Alistair Overeem outstruck and beat Rosenstruck until the last 8 seconds of their 5-round fight. I think that Francis Ngannou will not let it get anywhere close to that length of time, and I should be able to put it away in the first round.
Yeah, look, I want to know what more does Francis need to do to get that title shot. And honestly, Stipe is really wearing thin on me now. Obviously, we've got the pandemic, so you got to cut a bit of slack. But this inactivity and what's happening with the heavyweights really starting to wear thin. Rosenstruck, he hit some good stats, 75%, 90%, 100%. He's going to sleep in this one, and I think it's round one.
It's such a crazy fight. I'm never really getting that excited for heavyweight fights unless it's like a DC fight or something like that. Only from a fan's point of view, as in being a fan of the fighter. But Francis is probably someone I see as a future champion as well. So for him to have this division, it needs to start with this fight. I'd love to see a win, and it's got to be a knockout, doesn't it? These big boys can't go to a decision, surely.
Surely. I like how Statman just predicts round 1 KO when the other bloke's been 10-0 and hasn't lost yet. But you know what? Firmly agree. Going to Ngannou as well for Snags.
So is that it? That's
it.
Good. That's like, yeah, I'm
real in
Short and
depth.
sweet, baby.
Yep.
Hashtag short and sweet Snags.
Heading into the co-main event, we have a bantamweight championship fight between Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz last fought December 2016, sorry. Since his last fight, the following fighters have made their UFC debut. We got Dominic Reyes, Justin Gaethje, Paulo Costa, Sean O'Malley, Volkan Oezdemir, Zabit Magomedsharipov, Israel Adesanya, Johnny Walker, Petr Yan, Weili Zhang, and Ben Askren. So all of those fighters have made their UFC debuts since Dominic Cruz's last fight. It is the longest layoff of his career by far. And that is saying something when you're talking about Dominic Cruz. He's one of my favorite fighters. His movement is amazing. My favorite fighter is Frank Yeager. My second favorite is Dominic Cruz. The movement of both fighters, the boxing of both fighters, the wrestling of both fighters. I just think that Dominic Cruz's time has come. He probably should have maybe stayed retired. Obviously, he's got a sick interview gig going on for him. And he's a great commentator on the nights that he's on. But I believe that Henry Cejudo right now is in the prime of his life. And I'm concerned for Dominic Cruz coming back from 3.5 years of layoff.
Yeah, no, firmly agree there. Statman, Dominic Cruz, thought by many to be one of the greatest bantamweights ever. However, the game evolves quickly, and 3.5 years, it's a long time, as you said. I'll just quickly, it doesn't seem 3.5 years ago we watched that Cody fight. It seems closer in the memory bank than 3.5 years back. But, to make matters worse, he's coming up against a fighter who, forget the little promos, forget the Triple C. Henry Cejudo is by far one of the most dangerous fighters on the UFC roster right now. He's won, more money for me than anyone else. I've been on him for a long time. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. No fighter at this level shows more improvement between fights than Henry Cejudo. So not only is Dom Cruz coming back from 3.5 years out of the game, he's got to do that against an absolute killer who's been improving more than anyone over those 3.5 years. So honestly, I think this will be a KO for Henry. His striking's improved considerably. Is his boxing as efficient as Cody's was when he fought Cruz? Probably not, but I still think it's good enough to get the job done. I'm sensing he'll land a lot more than what people will expect. And Cruz isn't much of a counter striker, so there's not a whole lot of risk, I don't think, in that approach. If for whatever reason he's in trouble, he can certainly take it to the ground and bore us to a decision. But I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll see this fight take place standing up, and I think Cejudo catches him, let's say in the second.
Yeah, I can't believe as well, 3.5 years. We really jumped on the Cody bandwagon after that and hasn't really panned out the way it was supposed to. It was a great, super entertaining fight. Look, Dominic Cruz has had a lot of time to analyze these fights. They talk about how much video work you should put in, and then it's totally different when you're in the cage. But, mate, who knows? They're both coming off shoulder surgery. Does that even them up? I don't know. I think Dom Cruz, I think the problem's in his knees, probably the way he moves around the cage. The thing that makes him really unique is that opportunity where he moves around and can really change it up and change his level. So I don't know if that's going to happen. But, again, I'm convincing myself to go against it and say Henry Cejudo, but I'm actually going to go Dominic Cruz by decision.
Oh, hashtag Snags value. What did I say before? Snags money.
Snags value.
I forget what my hashtag is.
You've forgotten your own hashtag.
What was my hashtag for the underdog?
Snags value.
Hashtag Snags value for Deal. Well done, Deal.
Deal's also got his own hashtag, house money, and I think that's what he's playing at here.
Oh, it's like barbs. Did we do an update in the standings? Oh, we didn't. I have to slot that bad boy in somewhere. Anyway, Snags picking the old co-main, eh? Who would have thunk it? So I'm going to go Triple C. Couple of reasons, boys. One, how can he go past that hairstyle? He's got thick hair everywhere, and I don't see him getting KO'd with that on his head. But in all seriousness, Triple C is just absolutely on fire at the moment. I don't see him getting beat by Dominic Cruz, even though it should be a pretty close fight in my eyes. But I think Cejudo walks away still with the title, still with the belt, and lives to fight another day.
I just remembered Cruz's second longest layoff at this point was 2.5 years. He came back to fight number 6 ranked Takaya Mizugaki and absolutely destroyed him in under a round. So, Takaya Mizugaki is a different breed than Henry Cejudo, but there's evidence to suggest that ring rust does not exist for Dominic Cruz, but time will tell.
I appreciate you undervaluing my tip then.
No worries. My own tip too.
I'm very nervous.
Statman, we need to work out what's the success rate of 35 and over MMA fighters for the next podcast.
I think it comes down to fight years as well. Like you look at Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo's he's on the young side of 30. He's like 31, 32. And he's on his way out. But then you have fighters like Randy Couture who start fighting at 36 and keep going. It's because they haven't put the miles on their body. It'd be interesting to see. I'll get cracking for next podcast.
Boys, it's time.
Breaking news with Stoney.
Boys, we've got some pretty exciting breaking news tonight, and it revolves around not only the biggest name in the UFC, but the biggest name in sports entertainment. My sources tell me, and I think they're on the money, that the UFC has reached out to not only Conor McGregor, but also Nate Diaz, and all the signs are pointing to a June face-off. The trilogy is looking like it will be completed. Obviously, they were thinking about Gaethje Conor, but obviously with Khabib going back to Russia, Gaethje slid up into the main event against Stoney. And guess what, boys? I think after many years, we're going to see the trilogy get finished off. What do we think about this one?
I genuinely think it's the perfect time for it now, honestly. There were talks about doing the third one almost immediately after. Like Nate Diaz was calling for the third one immediately after the second one happened, and I was like, all right, cool. I enjoyed both these fights, but like let's give it a bit of time to generate some heat and generate some hype. It's been enough time now. I want it to like. I would prefer Conor Gaethje, but I'm excited for Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor 3. And a year ago, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been. So I'm about this. Give it to me.
I think it's great. I think it doesn't hurt any of them. Conor loses if Nate loses. I don't think it's going to make a difference to him. It's just going to put on a damn good fight. So let's see the trilogy, and let's. I think it's Conor's fight. I think Conor's going to be the one that's going to take it out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'd love to see the trilogy for sure.
I'd be aroused for it. Just putting it out there. Wouldn't say no, that's for sure. I've said no to worse things.
In terms of their value, Stat Man, I absolutely agree. But one thing I think's maybe dampened this one is Connor's come back and he's obviously walked through Cowboy, gone on to big things. Nate had let's be honest, a fairly lackluster performance. Everyone, all the fans, the Diaz followers are saying, if that fight had gone with Masvidal another couple of rounds, Nate was just getting started. Let's be fair, like that fight wasn't getting started. We saw a Nate Diaz who was very outclassed. So we've got one person who's come back and looking very, very sharp, and we've got someone who come back and he looked great against the Pettis. I think that would have been the time. After the Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz, that's when Nate's value was at its absolute highest, and they decided to go down the Masvidal route. But nonetheless, this is a trilogy. It's just one of the bigger ones in the history of MMA that we need to see it get finished. And I'd be all for it. If Connor's not getting a Khabib fight, which he shouldn't, he has to go down this Nate Diaz route, get that out of the way. That will give big buys for the UFC. And then depending on the outcome, I think if Conor wins, there's a very real chance that we see Conor fight for a title. But if Nate loses, I think that could be, just about it for Nate Diaz, which is a little bit sad. He's been such an integral part of not only the company, but this sport for such a long time.
I was convinced that after Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor 2, the only time we'd ever see Nate Diaz back in the octagon was going to be Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor 3. And obviously ended up being wrong with that. But it took 3 years. Was it 3 years? It took a long time to get Nate Diaz back in the octagon, which is, Nate Diaz he's fun to watch. Like, put him in the octagon against anybody, and there's still plenty of fun fights to watch of him. I would love to see him at lightweight against Gaethje. I'd love to see him against Tony Ferguson. I'd love to see him against Stephen Thompson. I reckon that'd be a fun fight at welterweight. So there's plenty of fun fights, but I think you're right. If this fight doesn't go through, or it does go through, and Diaz loses, what's left for him? And he's probably going to bank $10 million because Diaz isn't signing a contract to fight Conor McGregor for the third time without a thick stack of cash. Why do it? He doesn't like fighting as well. He gets anxious during fights, just similar to GSP as well. He doesn't enjoy fighting as much as he looks like he is.
Thank you for the breaking news.
I thought you were going to say something, Snags.
No, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. Take that flag off and move me to the main event, baby.
Short and sweet Snags is now trending. We need more from you in the main event. I hope you're saving the best for last, Sugar.
I'm always saving the best for last. Do you know what, boys? I think, contrary to the opinions, I don't think Nate Diaz will ever be done. I think he'll be one of those guys that just keeps fighting, similar to Cowboy. And he'll just come in peaks and valleys. But even if he's not enjoying fighting, I think I saw a thing not long ago where he said, I'll fight forever. He'll just keep coming. That's his attitude, and that's how he kind of rolls. So, and you're never not going to want to watch a Nate Diaz fight, to be honest. So, I look forward to the future for Nate. Young grasshopper.
Boys, let's kick into this main event.
It's time!
Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight championship. Justin Gaethje has won 7 post-fight bonuses in his 6 UFC fights. Tony Ferguson has won 8 post-fight bonuses in his last 8 fights. If history is to be believed, people are getting paid in this fight. There are post-fight bonuses coming to both of them in all likelihood. I ummed and ahed about this fight for so long. I have the fight that I need to see before I can die a happy man is Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I am convinced with the year that we have had with COVID-19 and events being cancelled left and right, that something is going to come up to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I have managed to convince myself over the last week of deliberating this fight that the thing that is going to stop that fight for good is Justin Gaethje in this fight. You look at Tony Ferguson has had fights, lots of fights where he has been injured and rocked and dropped to the ground against fighters that he should have steamrolled. He always gets hurt. He always gets out of danger. Lando Venata is the perfect example, debuting Lando Venata when Tony Ferguson was 6-0, ranked 6th in the lightweight division. nearly finished Tony Ferguson twice in the first round. I don't see Justin Gaethje stopping. I hope Tony Ferguson wins so I can see the fight that I desperately need to see. But I'm picking Justin Gaethje by second round TKO. So even if my hopes and dreams for that Tony Khabib fight are ruined, I'll still have the victory in the potty prediction pool, and that will make me a little bit happier.
Go on the old the follow-up bet, backup bet. Do you know what I heard about 2020?
What's that?
I heard someone say it's basically like a razor scooter to the ankle.
It's a pretty accurate description. It's like walking on a piece of Lego in the middle of the night.
Any of the boys just have razor scooters back in the day? Surely.
They had like the bolt in bit, and then the bit at the brake at the back used to have like this nut on it that used to beat the shit out of your ankles.
Yeah, it's mad. Razor scooter for life. Scooter gang, baby. Anyway, Stoney, hook me up with your tip, mate.
Yeah, look, I think Gaethje could easily knock him out, but I don't want to think that way, Statman, and I do not like those negative vibes you're sending out to the universe. Tony does get hit a lot, but he's never been knocked out, and I've got to take some, reassurance from that. At the end of the day, Tony needs to win this fight because the fight fans need, and it's not about wanting, the fight fans need to see that Tony and Khabib fight. So I can see Gaethje coming out hard and landing on Tony. I'm hoping that he doesn't go away early. But when it gets to round 3 or what have you, Gaethje, he might try to take it to the ground, and I think it'll get there at some point. Both of them are phenomenal wrestlers, but once it's on the ground, I honestly think Tony's got far more tools to finish a fight. So I'm going for a fairly bold prediction: Tony by a 4th round sub in one of the bloodiest and most savage fights we've seen for a long, long time.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. This is a violent fight. Probably for me won't go past 3 rounds. I've got concern about the double weight cut for Tony, but sounds like that's the sort of bloke he is, so it's probably not going to interrupt his preparation whatsoever. I might take a Das choke in the 3rd.
Oh, calling the choke as well.
Das choke in the 3rd.
Das choke.
Yeah, he's working with our boy.
Yeah, I suppose.
Eddie Bravo.
At 10th, mate. 10th planet. Got to get those leg locks. Anyway, so that Craig Jones leg lock this week. Oh, sickening. Australian boy. Shout out Craig Jones. Look, gentlemen, I would say roll my Titanic music, but I have not prepared that this week. I'm going to go, it's going to be an absolute war, and I'm really looking forward to the fight. I think Lord of the Rings 2 style humans versus orcs kind of war will be delicious to watch. Absolutely tempting to rewatch, and we probably will as well. But I'm going to go Tony Ferguson, and I had an itch, and it's on my notes, and I'm not going to look down to the right because it says decision there, and I'm not doing it, boys. I just put it out there. I can't do it to you. So I'm going to go round 4, TKO Ferguson. But I think throughout those 4 rounds, we're going to be on the edge of our seat. We're going to absolutely love every second of it. First fight back, big fight. It's going to be a bloody mess, and I'm looking forward to it.
Boys, and at the end of the day, we're just pumped that the fights are back. Rumour also has it that they're running 2 more fights within the week after this as well.
That's like back-to-back too. It's like a midweek fight and then a weekend fight.
Yeah, I think it's a Wednesday night or something like that, and then a Friday or a Saturday.
Crazy.
Don't know how that translates into Australian time, but it's the day after. So anyway, boys, that rounds out episode 23 of the podcast. As usual, if you like what we're doing, hit us up on all our socials. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast if you can. We'd love to start doing some shout-outs at the end of our podcast for our supporters. So if you've recently subscribed, left us a review, let us know. We'd love to add you at the end of the podcast for a bit of a shout-out. We love hearing from you guys. That wraps up episode 23. My name is Daniel.
My name is Sugar Snags.
My name is Craig.
And my name is Stoney.
And we'll run it back with you all on the Run It Back podcast next time. That was why I was like, what sound is he gonna do?
Do you know what I'm thinking? I almost went Snags McGavin. Shooter Snags McGavin.
Shooter McGavin.
Started announcing our interviews when you're talking about him at the start, but I was like, oh, I'm going to leave some.
Every time Sean makes a decision, he'll go, wait, don't kill me. This is what I've done.
I go,
and then I've started sending him back the Shooter McGavin gif.
Because I'm just shooting from the hip every time. Shooter Snags McGavin, they call me, during the week. But yeah, the shots have
Don't hate
fortunately
me.
paid off so far. I think I've only had a couple that have deals been like, you should have done that. So
doesn't stop you, does it?
no, I usually keep going indeed. Anyway,
You know, boys, that was the potty.
good to have the boys back on the potty.